Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today. My Alberta Conservative colleagues and I are here today to bring attention to a growing national crisis in Canada. Unfortunately, this is a crisis that many Canadians remain unaware of. Our home province of Alberta is facing the worst recession and unemployment in a generation. While Albertans are keenly aware of the challenges facing them daily, the severity of the situation has gone largely unreported by national media and has yet to elicit a response from the federal government. That's why we're here today. We're announcing the launch of the Alberta Jobs Taskforce. The Alberta Jobs Taskforce will be comprised of Conservative members of Parliament from across the province. The task force will immediately begin intentional consultations with Alberta families, workers, employers, and industries with the end results of presentation of tangible policy solutions and budget recommendations to the federal government. This task force will also attempt to bring national attention to the ongoing situation in Alberta through the national media. The time to act is now. From 1985 to 2014, Alberta's GDP grew from $67.6 billion to $364.5 billion. During that same time period, the energy sector's share of the Alberta economy dropped from 36.1% to 25.5%. Our economy is growing, it's growing in a diverse manner, and this recession affects the entire country. This recession is not simply isolated to oil and gas jobs and workers. Since the start of 2015, Alberta has lost a fifth of its natural resource jobs, a fifth of its agriculture jobs, and a full quarter of its manufacturing jobs. Since the start of 2015, the number of unemployed Albertans has doubled, and as of today, there are over 200,000 Albertans out of work. Unemployment for Alberta youth sits at nearly 16%. There was a story that came out this morning that talked about how Calgary's downtown office vacancy rate is now over 25%. This is a stark reminder that people across industries, these are people who are out of work, are so deeply affected by this. And while these numbers and statistics are shocking, the reality is that they are more than that. These are real Canadians, real families who are just trying to survive. The longer this recession is allowed to continue, the greater the impact it will have on all Canadians, not just Albertans. It was Alberta that lifted Canada's economy out of the Great Recession. From 2010 to 2014, Alberta's economy grew twice as fast as the rest of Canada, averaging annual GDP growth of 5% compared to 2.68%. The reality is that there are hundreds of thousands of Albertans who are out of work today. There are many thousands more who are not sure if the job that they have today will be there next month, many who are barely making ends meet, and far too many who are facing emotional, physical, and mental challenges daily brought on by the crisis across this province. We all understand that when people face the stress of unemployment or the possibility of losing their job or their home, it can create additional challenges in families and communities. Believe me when I say that every Albertan, all of us standing here, our friends, our families, our co-workers, are directly or indirectly impacted by what's happening right now. In Calgary, where my riding is located, has had the highest unemployment from any major Canadian city at 9%. The idea that the Liberals have had no policy announcement, no funding directed to help workers and employers in Alberta, and no attention placed on what is happening right now is unacceptable. A common misconception exists with respect to Alberta's economic situation is that unemployment is solely a result of low oil prices. And let me be clear, as I possibly can be today, to Canadians from coast to coast to coast. The unemployment and recession in Alberta is not solely a result of low oil prices. There are many contributing factors to Alberta's situation, including increased taxes, labour migration, and regulatory uncertainty. This is why we've created this task force, to hear directly from the people being impacted daily by the recession and to work together in order to present real solutions quickly. The people that we stand here and represent cannot wait. We must act, and we must act quickly. I'm proud to stand up for the individuals and families that have sent me to this House to represent them. All of us here today can say that. And when I stand here today and speak on behalf of more than 100,000 Albertans in my riding, on this stage with my fellow colleagues who were elected and collectively represent millions of Albertans who are concerned about their future and their family's future, we cannot overemphasize how important it is to act now. So to our friends, to our neighbours, and to our families in Alberta, we stand here for you. We will work hard to bring attention to what is happening back at home to these halls of Parliament and to Canadians across the country. We will not quit fighting to restore jobs and return investment to our province. We know that times are tough right now, but we also know that Albertans are the strongest, most resilient people on earth, and I know that our best days are still ahead. Some have forgotten that a strong Alberta means a strong Canada, and with the help of this task force, we'll be reminding them of this fact in a loud and clear voice. I'd now like to introduce my colleague Matt Genereux to bring perspectives and greetings from Northern Alberta.
Alberta isn't just facing an economic crisis, but also a human tragedy. The crash of oil has hit our province hard, and Alberta families are suffering the dire consequences. Since the beginning of 2015, the number of unemployed Albertans has nearly doubled. There are now 200,000 people out of work. To put that in perspective, that's twice the population of the city of Lethbridge. In my city, Edmonton, unemployment has risen 44% in the last year and now sits among the highest in the country at 8%. Unfortunately, last week's EI numbers provided more bad news for Alberta, with an 87% increase in EI claims in the last year. While these facts are distressing, it is the stories of the people behind the numbers that are truly devastating. Skilled workers across Alberta are struggling to provide for their families. Kids are seeing their parents go to the food bank for the first time, and many are being forced to seek opportunities for employment in other provinces and countries, taking their valuable skills, creativity, and ingenuity with them. In fact, more than 24,000 Albertans have already left the province, and losing these skilled workers is yet another hit that will further weaken our province. But the impacts of Alberta's job crisis extend far beyond our provincial borders. Since the global financial crisis, Alberta has been the economic engine of Canada. Albertans have worked hard for generations, and all of Canada has benefited from our province's economic strength. The Canadian economy and the growth and prosperity we've come to expect will lag behind until Alberta's economy is strong again. Without a clear and targeted plan in place by the federal Liberal government that specifically addresses the challenges being faced in Alberta, companies will continue to move their business elsewhere, families will continue to struggle, and skilled workers will be forced to line up for EI. It's only fair that the federal government present real actions and solutions in what is now Alberta's time of need. It is with the Alberta Jobs Taskforce that we will work with everyday Albertans, struggling families, investors, small businesses, and companies to hear their thoughts and develop concrete solutions that will allow the Alberta economy to grow and restore the province as the economic leader in the country. We will hear the stories of those who have been affected by the economic crisis, and we will listen to enterprising solutions from Albertans on how to get our province back on its feet. The task force will then be presenting a report directly to the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister with real policy solutions and requests for the next federal budget. As proud Albertans, we want to see the restoration of our province as an economic leader in Canada, a hub for job creation and ingenuity. But to achieve this, Alberta needs leadership. We understand that a strong Canada must include a prosperous Alberta, and the Alberta Jobs Taskforce will continue to challenge the federal Liberal government until real solutions are back on the table to help Albertans get back to work. Thank you. I'll take questions from the meeting.
So what exactly will the task force be doing?
So the task force will be hearing directly from Albertans, from small businesses, from companies, to hear on the ground what they've felt in the last year, 2 years, and how we can be able to translate that into a real action for a proposal for a report for the federal government.
You're not all going to travel across Alberta all the time. Have you honed it down to 2 or 3 people? Or
well, Julie, actually, this affects all Albertans. We have to be traveling across Alberta to get the feedback from people all the way up from Fort McMurray who were devastated in a fire this year. My colleague, I think David Yerdiga, is here. He keenly understands the fact that what his community is going through is aggravated in a different way than what my riding is. That exact thing, traveling to all corners of this province and putting in place tangible policies, the low-hanging fruit of things that we can be doing to get people back to work, is what the federal government should be doing right now. And because they're not, we are.
And so do you have any ideas, just off the top of your head, what would be an obvious low-hanging fruit?
Yeah, you know, we're not going to presuppose the work of the committee. What we want to do is hear from everyday Albertans, not just special interest groups, not major companies that we see our colleagues on across the other side of the aisle talking to. We want to hear directly from Albertans who have been affected by this crisis.
Do you see a bigger problem at the federal or provincial level?
You know, we're elected federally, so we're focusing our work at the federal level. I'm sure we'll hear some of the concerns at the provincial level, but want to take a coordinated and focused approach back here to the government in time for the budget next year.
I will say this, there is a confluence of disaster that's happening in policies at the provincial and federal level right now for our province.
And how would you just, in what way?
Increases in taxes, increases in CPP premiums, regulatory uncertainty, signals to international investors that Alberta is closed for business, increased burden on small businesses that's causing them to close their doors, no help for people that are looking whether or not they stay in the province for skills training. Actually, just the tin ear of this government, that deafness to the fact that this is even a problem. We're spending 3 days in the House of Commons here debating an issue that the government has not contextualized in the concept of what's happening in Alberta, and that's really what we're here to combat today.
What does that mean? You mean 3 days debating what, climate change or the Paris Accord?
Well,
how does that fit into it?
Catherine McKenna stood in the House of Commons last week and said that the Alberta recession is due simply to low commodity prices. You know, that in and of itself shows a lack of understanding when they're talking about increasing taxation when a time that our economy is so unstable. You know, the reality is that most Canadians enjoy a high quality of life because of the hard work of Albertans. The people that we represent have quietly and strongly worked hard to build Canada's GDP. There's going to be significant ramifications across the Canadian economy as this jobs crisis continues to roll out, and we need to act now.
Is it as simple as we were all hearing about pipelines and what a pipeline would do? I mean, can you talk about that as any help to the situation?
Yeah, you know, it's not just about pipelines, it's not just about infrastructure. This is a coordinated, focused approach that we want to take back to the federal government and report back what we've been hearing on the ground. We want to meet with small businesses that have closed up shop. Why have they closed up shop? What can happen at the federal level that we can help support and promote in the next budget? So we're seeing a lot of infrastructure announcements that, you know, are just one piece of it. We want to make sure that it's something that's bigger and more of a coordinated approach.
So this will be a report delivered to the finance minister, and would you have a timeline for when you're hoping to deliver this?
Yeah, so the timeline is we're in time for the next budget. We want to make sure that we have enough time for us to speak with everybody who's feeling their voices and being heard by this government who's completely ignoring this crisis. So that's the timeline that starts immediately. We have a website that's live as of today, and we want to hear the stories from Albertans. We want to hear the stories from small businesses. We want to hear the stories that we can then bring back to Parliament.
And this is about advocacy. This is about ensuring that when the government is looking at their next federal budget, that they're taking stock of Albertans, given how bad the crisis is right now.
Debate in the House this week has to be understood in the context of what's happening in Alberta. What do you mean by that? Are you saying that because of what's happening in Alberta, you will vote against that motion?
Well, many of us are going to be giving speeches on that motion over the next few days, so stay tuned on that. But as we've always said, we can't. I wish the government wouldn't hide their ideological opposition to the development of our energy sector, you know, in very vague terms and words. I have heard nothing out of them, and none of my constituents, or any of the constituents of the people that we stand here today, where the government has said, we support the workers of Canada's energy industry, we support their right to prosperity and job opportunity, and any policy that we put in place with regard to environmental sustainability will be cognizant of that. Instead, what we're hearing is tax, tax, tax. And that is not what families who are out of work, and that is not what job-creating investors want to hear right now.
But at the same time, Everybody's saying that if we keep at the same pace of exploiting the oil sands, we will not meet our targets. So don't you think that maybe a tax is a...
You know, again, we don't want to presuppose the work of the committee. What we're announcing here today is a focused task force to make sure that we hear from Albertans what exactly they're struggling, the reasons why they're struggling. Particularly, I can tell you right now, I've heard constantly in my office that carbon tax, a national carbon tax, is not something that Albertans want right now. So to make sure that we're hearing directly from Albertans and not presupposing the work of the committee.
It's a complete conservative task force, right? I know there's not a lot of Liberals in Alberta, but you didn't invite them on.
Well, the Liberals have a voice. The Liberals have elected representatives in Alberta, and where are they?
Exactly.
They're completely absent. The regional minister from my city voted against a motion to support pipelines. The infrastructure minister in Alberta has been completely absent on addressing needs in that file. I think it's a very sad day that the Liberal government has to turn to the opposition to be a voice for a considerable constituency of Canadians. That's really where we're at today, and especially when we talk about environmental policy as well too. You can't ignore an entire region of the country that supports a huge portion of our GDP in any policy, environmental, taxation, social programming, and that's what's been done with this Liberal government, and it's time to stop. We have to act now because it's getting really bad for the people that we represent.